Hello everyone, this is Gene Elliot from ReasonNC.com. I'm the official organizer for the convention in North Carolina called ReasonCon. I just wanted everyone to know that I stand with the transgender community. As we approach the time that a lot of people remember those we've lost in the transgender community, I would like to reflect on something. You see, each one of us is a minority with respect to something. It might be a race, religion, sexual orientation, nationality, or any other way we may be regarded as different. Each of us is also a part of some majority. It is when we wear our majority hats that we need to be most mindful of how we treat others. We must pledge our best efforts to help one another and to defend the rights of all of our citizens. As a humanist, I say what divides us is not so much our religious differences, but the degree of commitment we have to equal freedom of conscience for all people. We share beliefs that we must treat our fellow human beings with respect and dignity. I don't ask you to close your eyes and say a prayer. I ask you to keep your eyes open, constantly open, to the serious issues within and toward our LGBT citizens. I don't ask you to bow your heads, but to look up at what you can accomplish by applying your considerable talents and experience to the problems that confront them. I don't ask you to stay silent about the angst you feel with the needless loss of life for the people in our community, but specifically to the transgender community. I also encourage you to open your eyes, raise your head, and speak up. As we remember those who are no longer with us, we understand that to strengthen acceptance for you as a minority also strengthens us as a majority, putting an end to violence, condemnation, and the shame plague of simply being different. That's how we build a stronger tomorrow.
Hello friends, and welcome to this special edition of the Gaytheist Manifesto. Tomorrow, November 20th, 2015, people around the world in more than 185 cities and 20 countries will observe the day known as the Transgender Day of Remembrance. Listeners of the show will undoubtedly have heard me mention this day on the show before. Today we're doing our own Day of Remembrance special. This episode, I can assure you, will be difficult to listen to, but it should be. The Transgender Day of Remembrance is a day once a year when communities across the world come together to remember those lost to anti-transgender violence in the past year. The event began as a remembrance of a trans woman named Rita Hester who was murdered in her own apartment. There was a community outcry and a vigil was held in her honor. That event morphed into what we now observe as the Transgender Day of Remembrance. If you ask most people within the trans community what the most important day is for us, you'll generally hear that it's the Day of Remembrance. It's a pretty sobering commentary on the state of the transgender community in our country and our world to recognize that the day many of us feel is the most important is not a day where we celebrate some milestone for equality, some great achievement by someone from our community, but the day that we memorialize our dead. It's important to note that the Transgender Day of Visibility is also a thing, and we will have a special episode for that as well. Celebrating our diversity and working to make ourselves more visible in the world we live in. But today, we memorialize and honor those who won't get to live to see the day when we can live freely in society without worry or fear. We mourn the dead, try to give hope to the living, and try to find a way forward. I don't want this episode to be a complete and total downer for everyone because as bad as things are sometimes, there are people doing amazing things in our community, both trans folks and allies alike. So I'd like to open this episode with an interview with someone in the secular movement who's in the middle of doing something very good for our community. Noel George is the executive director of Foundation Beyond Belief, who has Transgender Law Center as one of their beneficiaries this quarter. Noel George, welcome back to the Gaytheist Manifesto.
Thank you so much for having me, Callie.
So lots has happened since we spoke last. You are now executive director of Foundation Beyond Belief. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you. I'm very excited.
So talk to me about what Foundation Beyond Belief does.
Okay. We actually have 4 different programs that we work on. The original program and concept of Foundation Beyond Belief is to support secular charities that are doing good work, humanist type values. And what we do is we have people join as members for as little as $5 a month. And then we pass 100% of those member donations through to 5 charities that we select per quarter. People can designate what the contributions are that they would like to go to per charity. So like if you want 20% to go across to all 5, or you could have 100% go to one. You can choose and change it as often as you want. The other interesting thing about this program is that we have a category called Challenge the Gap. And that category is supporting a secular, non-proselytizing charity doing work in interfaith type work. They don't always do interfaith type work, but the idea is to support a non-proselytizing secular charity with a religious identity that is doing good work for the common good. So that's our kind of flagship program, our original program. The other programs are Humanist Service Corps, which is a group of volunteers doing international service in Ghana. There's the Beyond Belief Network, which is local teams around the country doing volunteer service, and we support them in doing that volunteer work. We give prizes and free T-shirts and things like that, depending on what level the groups are. There are 3 levels for the Beyond Belief Network, depending on how many volunteer activities they do. And then our newest program is a really interesting program called Humanist Disaster Recovery. We have drives that we do, but we also are launching teams, which is people go out onto the site of a disaster and help rebuild. So that's really exciting. We're doing our first launch in January, so that's really exciting.
So you mentioned earlier that 100% of the money, say, I decide I want to give $20 a month, 100% of that goes through to the charities. How do you accomplish that?
Well, we do an annual fundraiser to cover our operational costs. So we track donations very carefully, and we're able to, so far, we've been able to cover our operational costs by doing an annual fundraiser at the end of the year, which we've just launched on November 10th. And we have some really exciting prizes this year for both individuals and groups who donate $10 or more. We're running it through Razoo, and people can win prizes like T-shirts, FBB swag. Groups can win help planning a mini conference with 3 popular secular speakers that they can choose from. You can get entrance to our next conference as an individual, just all sorts of interesting and fun prizes. So we're really excited about that.
Yeah, that's actually one of my favorite things, because you hear so many people complain about nonprofits and charity overhead. And I think a lot of that comes from a place of misunderstanding of how nonprofits actually work. Obviously you have to have operating money to survive while you do your work, because if you didn't, you wouldn't be able to do it. But I think that's kind of an ingenious solution to the problem, and to be able to say, like, look, if you want to donate to our operating expenses, you can, and that's the only way that your money's going that way. So I thought that was important to point out, because I think that's pretty unique and pretty awesome in the nonprofit world.
Yeah, a lot of organizations take a cut out of donations That, a lot of pass-through organizations do that, but we do 100% pass-through, and it hasn't been easy. There have definitely been times that we've wondered, are we going to need to do something different? But I'm pretty committed to maintaining the 100% pass-through, as well as only fundraising for our general operating costs once a year. I just think the holidays is a good time to do it, and it doesn't pester people. We don't pester people with constant emails about please give. We just ask for them to dig deep once a year.
Right. I hear you. So, relevant to the timing of you being on the show, one of the beneficiaries this quarter for Foundation Beyond Belief is Transgender Law Center. So, can you kind of talk to me a little bit about why you thought that was important and why that organization in particular?
Right. Our categories for our beneficiaries, we have 5 of them, as I said earlier. One is Challenge the Gap. One is education. We have poverty and health, human rights, which is what Transgender Law Center falls under, and then environment. And so this quarter, especially with the Transgender Day of Remembrance coming up on November 20th, is that right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
It was really important to me and to us to feature a transgender charity, and we did quite a bit of research. We always do a lot of research on our charities. We look at financial things. We look at program efficiency. We look at whether they're community based or not, or whether they're kind of trying to do something from afar that could be done from close up. And Transgender Law Center really shone through as a charity that we that met our standards and that we would really want to support. And they're, in case people aren't familiar, they're a legal services nonprofit, and they're based in San Francisco, the Bay Area. And they run one-on-one legal clinics for transgender and gender non-conforming people. And they especially focus on helping people who are low income, people of color, or Spanish speaking people. So they have a lot of good services. Another great service that they have that's a nationwide service is a legal helpline. They can refer people to their own staff attorneys for individual advice, or they can refer them to other resources to address issues of discrimination and civil rights. So you can learn more about Transgender Law Center on our website, www.foundationbeyondbelief.org. Uh-oh.
The dog agrees.
She's not a big dog either, but she has a big dark bark.
Yeah.
Hold on a second. Okay.
No worries.
Okay, I just put her away.
Okay, cool.
Do we need to redo that?
If you could just say the website again, because I think it was caught right at the end of when you said the website.
Okay. To learn more about Transgender Law Center and Foundation Beyond Belief, you can visit our website at www.foundationbeyondbelief.org and go to Humanist Giving.
Very cool. So what's the future got in store for Foundation Beyond Belief? Are there any cool special projects or anything like that coming up that you can announce or talk about? Or?
Well, this year has been our first year of the Humanist Service Corps being in Ghana. We are about to take applications for our second year of being in Ghana. So if people are interested in doing international service and going to Ghana and working with the women in the witch camps there in Ghana with our partner organization Song Taba, it's a great opportunity for people who can do that type of quote unquote mission, if you will.
Right.
And The other thing that I mentioned earlier is that we are deploying our disaster recovery teams to South Carolina to help with the flooding, and that will happen in January. So if people want to go to our website and sign up to be a part of that team, they can go to the website that I gave earlier, foundationbeyondbelief.org, and go to Humanist Volunteering. And then if they go to individual volunteering, they'll see join HDR teams or update your details, and that's where they can do that.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, and thanks for the work that you do, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks for having me. I'm really proud to be on this show. Thanks.
Over the past 12 months, 226 people lost their lives because they wanted to show the world who they were. They did not want to be in the closet anymore. They did not want to suffer in silence. They did not want to be unhappy. They wanted to show the world who they were, and they were punished for it with abandonment, homelessness, drug abuse, sexual abuse, and murder. This number is by no means complete or accurate. Over the past 12 months, there have likely been many deaths of transgender people across the world that have gone unrecorded. Today is the day where we mourn those people, recorded and unrecorded, who the world left behind, who the world treated in such a cruel and callous way. Tomorrow is the day where we vow to continue to fight for that number to get lower every year, and where we continue to hope for a world that will treat people who want to be who they feel that they are in their hearts, with the respect and the love that they deserve.
One of the things that I didn't find out until after a while being involved in the community is that the suicides of transgender people aren't included in the lists of names read at the Day of Remembrance events. And in fairness, the event did start specifically as a way to remember folks who have been murdered. But it's my contention that at the very least, there are a number of transgender suicides that could at least be morally classified as manslaughter or negligent homicide. Transgender people are at an incredibly inflated risk for suicide when compared to the general population, and there were many this year that made the news. We all remember Leila Alcorn's story, so I'm not going to dig too deep into that here. But there was also the suicide of
Blake Brockington,
an 18-year-old trans activist who was the first student at his school to be elected homecoming king as a trans person. We lost
Ashley Hallstrom,
a dedicated and passionate member of the trans community on Reddit,
Taylor Wells, Aubrey Shine,
who committed suicide by jumping from the Golden Gate Bridge,
Xander Mahaffey,
who cited family bullying in his suicide note, calling his mother the one who murdered him,
Melanie Rose,
who grew up in foster homes, and at her funeral, her parents completely erased her, using the name she didn't want and burying her in clothes she didn't want.
Emmett Castle, Kyler Prescott,
Both 14,
Ash Hoffner,
who was 16, all three took their lives despite loving support and encouragement from their families because of the bullying and hatred they endured in society and at school.
Skylar Lee,
whose mom's religion and cultural upbringing couldn't allow her to accept her transgender son. But in the wake of his death, she's become a fierce advocate for trans youth. It has to stop, and it's up to us to stop it. We need to affirm, validate, and love our transgender neighbors, friends, and family while they're here. We need to tell them that their lives matter and that they are loved and worthy of love. We don't need platitudes about how it gets better. We need direct and radical action to make it better. There shouldn't be a stigma surrounding getting help for the things that you need. You shouldn't have to choose between putting food on your table and your mental health. Leave your comfort zone, leave your safe space, and meet these hurting people where they are and love them. One more is too many more. I made a post on my Facebook page asking my trans friends if they could say one thing and have everyone in the world hear it. What would they say? We're people, just like you. This isn't a choice, it's survival. Support trans youth while they're alive. Don't just start caring when we're dead. You weren't the first person to misgender me today, and you won't be the last. Stop telling me to be patient. If I wasn't patient, I'd be dead. Trans youth in suburbia are not heard until death speaks for us. Listen to and help suburban trans youth. The well-being of a person tied to their identity is not for you to decide. It is for that person and only that person. I would go for the Socratic method and ask, why does my gender matter at all to you? That, or give a 3-hour lecture on the difference between sex and gender. I'm not a goddamn rare unicorn or a special snowflake. Just treat me like you would any other person. I would say that all humans are human, period. I'm more than my gender identity. I'm a human being with loves and hopes and fears and favorite foods and favorite bands and favorite TV shows. I love dogs and ice cream and getting hugs from my friends. I'm just trying to live my life just like you are. Can you please just let me? It's interesting to note so many of these statements surround our basic humanity and simply asking people to care about us and our lives. There has been progress for the trans community over the years, but we have a long way to go. 41% of trans people have attempted suicide. 53% of trans people report being harassed while attempting to use a public restroom. As many as 57% of trans people have experienced discrimination in the workplace or in hiring. And before you get the idea that the news is all bad, consider that the risk of suicide, the risk of mental illness, these all fall significantly when a trans person feels like they have a supportive community to belong to. When their parents affirm their identity, the risk of suicide drops by as much as 57%. Where people report fewer encounters with transgender hate, the risk drops by 66%. This is not an inherent problem to being transgender. It's a society problem and a cultural problem. It's one that many of us are working to fix, and it is, however slowly, getting better.
The first time I ever touched someone else's breasts, it was the 7 wonders of the sexual world, the Great Pyramid of God, this shit is awesome! Sometimes people ask me when I knew I was queer. I'm pretty sure I knew before I touched the boob, but after the boob. After the boob. Everything was made clear to me. 1 boob, 2 boob, big boob, small boob, to hold them in my hands or mouth, to feel them pressed against my chest. I am a certified boob enthusiast. I love the back arch, the small sigh. Touching these bodies almost makes me believe in God, because I don't trust nature to create anything this good. But I also know that most gods punish more than they forgive. And my own body feels more like a guillotine than a gift. Sometimes people ask me when I knew I was transgender. They ask me if I feel like I was born in the wrong body, as if gender is that simple. As if my body is a pair of handcuffs chaining me to housewife, to mother, to woman. I am not trapped in my body. I am trapped in other people's perceptions of my body. My body is something I can only love from afar, a mistress I can only caress in secret. It is death by way of choking. I have no air to even call for help. I tell myself that top surgery is expensive, it's dangerous, the backaches from binding aren't really all that bad. Besides, I love boobs on other people, why can't I just love my own? But when I tell people my name, they still use the wrong one. I say not girl, and they give me back woman, lady, she. I say not woman, they say silly girl. It is not up to you to decide. And I don't want to hate my body for this. My body is not wrong. The way people talk about my body is wrong. But my body is the only thing I can change. My best friend asks me why I want top surgery, a voluntary double mastectomy. He asks me why I would want to cut off a perfectly healthy body part. I tell him it is not healthy to feel unsafe in my body. This chest feels like a misplaced sex organ. If you had a penis growing from your elbow, you'd probably want to cut it off. People would come up to you and talk to you about your elbow penis. They would never let you be anything more than your body. I am more than my body, but these days I can only love my chest like a good cry. When my friend calls me a burial ground, my life becomes a constant funeral, and there's no way that I can be happy with all of these ghosts living inside me. So stop calling me diseased. Stop looking at my body and chaining me to whoever you think it makes me. I was not born into the wrong body. I was born into a world that doesn't know what my body means.
One of the rituals traditional during the Transgender Day of Remembrance ceremony is the reading of the names. Something that's important to know about the reading of the names is that the list can never and will never be complete. The information on transgender murder and even suicide is not something that many places in the world are forthcoming with. The media often misgenders the victims, labeling them as cross-dressers or as drag queens, and there are, of course, many places in the world where killing a transgender person is overlooked or even encouraged by the local government and culture. That being said, I think it's important to remember as many as we can by name, so we know that this is not just a list, it's not just names, they're people. Human beings with their own lives, passions, dreams, loves, hopes, fears, and struggles. They didn't deserve to die. But in light of the fact that they deserve to be remembered. I've gathered some friends to help me with the reading of the names. Thank you to Stephanie Guttormson, Ari Coleman, and Trav Mamone for joining me in this solemn endeavor.
Chocobar Marcela, Diana Sakayan, Mayang Prasetyo, Hande O, Papia, Adriana, Andrea Amando, Barbara Sodre, Bianca Araujo, Bruna Mendez, Bruna Michele, Bruna Garcia, Capitu Santos, Carol Melo, C.N. Alves de Matos Jr., Deborah, Didina, Erika Aguilera, Flower, Gabi, India Nascimento, Jean Waltrick, Job Rodriguez de Silva, Joyce Akira, Kawane da Silva, Katie, Kelly Silva, Elea de Souza, La Monique de Roma, Lara, Laura Vermont, Leo, Lotina, L.R.O. Dorta, Micael Lucas de Almeida Reginald, Natalia Ferraz, Pata, Patricia, Paulina, Piu da Silva, Priscilla da Silva, Rafaela Capucci, Raisa, Sidney Claudino, Stephanie, Tiziane Abravanel, Vandresa Vinit, Vanessa Calaca, Vanessa Ganzaroli, V.H.A. Dos Santos, Victoria Camargo, Waleska Ralaya, Igor Fernando Olivera Santos, Sumaya Dalmar, Dylan Vera, Diosvani Muñoz Robaina, Marisol Morales Almeida, Melissa Ceballos Montenegro, Francela Méndez Rodríguez, Sabi Bariani, Nefi Luthers,
Daya Rani Kinar, Kajal Mansouri, Priya, Rani, Ranjita, Sharmila, Sonia Masi, Suman Singh,
Sunita, Togam Romeo, Ayu Basamala, Shakira, Zabekti, Jessica Rowland, Shamir Musan, Angel Gabby, Jessica, Jayateki, Sunny Angela, Amaruf Bijli, Bili, Kita, Munir, Saima Shahzadi, Shah Zaib, Shahid, Tala, Wajahat, Wasim, Bernal, Carlos Canlas, Glidel Lebranda, Herminia, Jennifer Laud, Jenny, Luningning Alsaid, Mary Jo Ananuveo, Nathalia Ann Gonzalez, Nicanor Barilla, Naives Toledo,
Jatupan, Cornsarinya, Nam, Pirayut An Bunmi, Prawat Tayindi, Ronachai Pobai, Kagla Joker, Sinjin Gul, Daidem, Esse Surif Remsi Pulat, Gaye, Nareen B, Nihat Kurt, Ramazan Setin,
Vanessa Santillan, Amber Monroe, Ashton O'Hara, Bree Golick, Deshonda Sanchez, Alicia Walker, Gizzy Fowler, India Clark, Jasmine Collins, K.C. Haggard, Candice Capri, Kimori Shitoya Johnson, Keshia Blige, Keisha Jenkins, Chrissy Bates, Christina Gomez Reinwald, Lamia Beard, London Chanel, Melvin, Mercedes Williamson, Poppy Edwards, Penny Proud, Shade Schuler, Taha Gabriel de Jesus, Tamara Dominguez, Ty Underwood, Yasmin Vash Payne, Zella Zayana,
Famisa Araujo Cobis, I've had the honor last year and this year being asked to deliver the keynote address for Cincinnati's Transgender Day of Remembrance ceremony. And I'm going to share with you here the speech that I'll be delivering at this year's Transgender Day of Remembrance in Cincinnati. My friends, my family, my community, good evening. Friends, family, and community. It could be disputed, but I think I could make a solid argument that those three words, those three concepts, are some of the most important things in a person's life. Ever since human beings have been human beings, we have been social creatures. There are, of course, exceptions to every rule, but as a rule, we Homo sapiens are dependent on our tribes. We depend on our families, whether the families we're born into or the families we choose because of the repeated demonstration of their selfless and unconditional love for us. We depend on our friends, the ones we can call late at night to yell about our problems and be listened to without judgment. And we depend on our communities. We become part of these communities because of a shared interest, a shared passion, a certain trait that we share that colors how we navigate the world so much that we need to seek out others who share that specific experience for love, help, and support. And this, my friends, is what brings us here tonight. It's not that we all share an interest or a passion, though many of us may. It's not that we have the same religion or no religion, though we may. It's not because we share a political affiliation, though we may. It's not because we all like the same bands or the same TV shows, though we may. It's that we have dared to step outside the boxes society places on us because of the bodies we're born with, and because of a letter marked on our birth certificate that forever determines how we are viewed by the society and culture we live in, that colors nearly every daily interaction we have with the people we meet. Yes, we have dared to not fit those two neat, polite, pink and blue boxes our culture has built for us. And many of us, too many of us, especially if we happen to be people of color, poor, disabled, or non-binary identified, are punished for it by having our lives taken from us. I'm honored to have been asked once again to deliver the keynote address for this most solemn and important event in our community. Last year, I stood on this very stage and talked about hope and about the positives of my experience and of the love, the support, and the affirmation that I felt from this community. Throughout the ups and downs of my journey in the last year, I sometimes watch that video and I feel inspired. And sometimes I look at that video and think, gosh, what a stupid, naive child I was. Over the past year, there has been much to test the hope and enthusiasm that was on display in that speech. And I'm not going to drag anyone through a retelling of those events because each trans person here lived them with me. And they're imprinted on your memories just as much as they are on mine. Suffice it to say, we were reminded several times and in several ways this year just how harsh a place our society and our world can be for those of us who don't fit those neat little gender boxes. My friends, I am not here to spit platitudes or corporate motivational speak at you. I am not here to lie about my boundless optimism or why I think everything's going to be okay. But there is hope. There is most definitely hope. And I am here tonight to make a call to action in pursuit of realizing that hope for this community that I love and that has given me so much. We're all very familiar with the meme of fixing society. If you care enough about the lives of transgender people to be in this room, it's a safe bet to guess that you very much recognize how broken society is in its attitude toward and treatment of transgender and gender nonconforming people of all kinds. But I'm not here now to tell you to fix society. There are roughly 200 people in this room, 330 million in the United States and over 7 billion in the world. I'm not so presumptuous as to assign you the task of a paradigm shift in the attitudes of thousands or millions or billions of people. As activists, as allies, and simply as members of the community, we are very practiced at telling others what we need from them. We are very practiced at telling our allies what we need, and our allies are very practiced at going out to broader society and repeating that message for us. But I think it's vital that we also reflect on our own behaviors and attitudes. There's not a person in this room who isn't in the position of being an ally to someone. Are we being cognizant of the fact that the overwhelming burden of violence and murder in our community is carried by trans women of color? Are we aware that even we sometimes erase the identities of our fellow trans people when we aren't inclusive of those with non-binary identities? Are we guilty of the sometimes paternalistic and condescending attitude that broader society shows to our fellow trans people who have mental or physical disabilities? Are we aware of and respectful of the religious diversity in our community, including those of us with no religion at all? Do we keep in mind that not everyone in our community has enough to eat or a roof over their head tonight? Are we ourselves as a whole doing the best we can to lift up those who are marginalized even within our own communities? My intention here is not to call anyone out, but to call everyone to reflect. There are those in our community for whom everyday survival is their only occupation. Are those of us with the privilege and ability to do so really doing the best we can to lift those people up and make life better for them while we fight for ourselves as well? We can and will change society, and society is changing, albeit slowly and painfully. But at the same time, we look outwardly at the world and all the wrong it's done to us. I'm inviting us to reflect inwardly and make sure that we're doing the best we can to provide a safe, welcoming, affirming, and loving place for all in our community. There's not a person in this room who hasn't faced adversity. Adversity is a guarantee of the human condition. When we face adversity, where do we go? We go to our friends, our families, and our communities for love and support. There are those of us, like myself, who want for basically nothing when it comes to that. I'm fortunate enough to have an extremely large group of friends, both in the LGBT community and in the atheist community I'm a passionate and active member of. I will never feel like I have no place to go and no one to turn to. There are those in our community who aren't that fortunate. And in the meantime, while we're trying to convince the world to take care of us, let's make sure we're taking care of us. I spoke earlier about hope and the people who inspire me every day. Many of those folks are the friends and family I've made in the atheist movement. Many or most of them are people with no direct skin in the fight for LGBT equality. They care because that's what humanists do. They care about people who are hurting and have made a conscious decision to love and support us as queer and trans people because they recognize, as anyone should, that we're people like any other, and that we deserve health, love, and happiness just like anyone else does. So to my friends in the atheist movement who have lifted me up, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I couldn't do this work without you. We are making a real difference together. I would never break confidentiality, but God, if I could only show you my email inbox, you would know we're making a difference together. We're making the world and this movement a better place for our LGBT family, and I am so very proud to love you and call you my family. To the listeners of the show who are fellow members of the transgender community, if you ever feel like you're alone, I need to tell you that you're not. And I want to introduce you to some of the people in this movement who love you and care for you.
This is David Smalley with Dogma Debate, and I stand with the transgender community.
This is Christopher Tanner from Cellar Doors Skeptics, and I support the transgender community.
This is Sharon Bush.
I'm Chris the Seethin' Heathen.
And I'm Joe Kindick.
From the Unbuckling the Bible Belt podcast, and we stand with the transgender community.
This is Dan from the Godless Revolution, and I stand with the transgender community.
This is the HNIC Ishmael Brown from the Angry Black Rant podcast, and you best believe that I stand with the transgendered community.
This is Matt with the Godless Revolution, and I stand with the transgender community.
Hey, this is Keith.
And I'm Jen from Not Another Atheist podcast, and we stand with the transgender community.
This is Ryan Duffy from the Godless Revolution, and I stand with the transgender community.
This is Tucker and Fuzznuts from the Atheist in the Trailer Park podcast, and we stand with the transgender community.
From Waiting for Wrath, this is Aaron.
This is Jen.
This is Shay.
And Steve.
And we stand with the transgender community.
This is the Prophet Jeremiah of the No Religion Required podcast, and I wanted to let you know that I'm a proud trans ally and part of the large secular community that is there to support you and always fighting to make it so it does get better.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, family. This is America.
I'm Joey.
I'm Ruby the Terrorist.
And I'm Blake.
We're the hosts of the Godless Drinking Hour podcast. And we stand with the transgender community.
Yes!
This is Ryan Bell from the Life After God podcast, and I am proud to stand with the transgender community.
This is Dave, Chris, the Unknown Seaman.
Brian, Sunwinks.
Big Black Gay Dave.
The Everyday Atheist, Ed Smith.
From the Atheist podcast.
And we stand.
We stand.
We stand. We stand.
We stand.
With the transgender community.
Hi, this is Dallin from Holy Crap the Vlogcast, and I proudly support the trans community.
Hey everyone, this is Cass Midgley of the Everyone's Agnostic podcast. My co-host Dr. Bob Pondillo and I proudly stand with the transgender community.
I hope this episode was hard to listen to. I hope that you got something from it. I hope that if you're an ally, you have a better understanding of some of the things we face in the transgender community. If you are a member of the community, I hope you come away feeling validated and feeling hopeful that there are people who really do care and really do want you to not just live but thrive. I want to thank from the bottom of my heart everyone who contributed to this episode. Gene Elliot for the opening invocation, Stephanie Guttormson, Trav Mamone, and R. Coleman for the reading of the names, and all of my fellow atheist podcasters who contributed their messages of love and support for this community. You can find the show online at gaytheistmanifesto.secularmediagroup.com, on Facebook at facebook.com/thegaytheistmanifesto, and on Twitter at thegaytheists. You can email us at thegaytheistmanifesto@gmail.com, and you can find me on Facebook under Callie Wright and on Twitter at GaytheistCallie. If you want to support the activism that I do and support the show, head to patreon.com/thegaytheistmanifesto and consider a per-episode donation to support what we do. If financial support isn't feasible, you can also help us by leaving a 5-star review on iTunes. Before we go, I want you to know that if you're lost, you're hurting, you're scared, if you feel like no one cares and no one understands, you need to know there is a community out here that loves you, cares for you, knows that you're capable of amazing things and that you are worthy of love. If you're struggling, please don't be afraid to reach out. You mean everything. Until next time, friends, this is the Gaytheist Manifesto.